What's up, everyone? It's J-Man, and today I'm going to talk to you about the future stars of the NBA. I think people are way too quick to determine if they think that somebody will be a star or a bust in the NBA. And people act very confident that they will know who the top stars in the NBA will be in 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years down the road. It's pretty easy to prove that nobody knows what the NBA will look like in the future. Some stars of today are pretty predictable and everybody knew they were going to be stars, like LeBron, KD, and Anthony Davis. But outside of those few players, nobody predicted any of these players would be stars today. If 8 years ago you said, I think the Golden State Warriors are going to be the NBA's next dynasty, led by Steph Curry, and Draymond Green is going to become one of the best defensive players in the league, and Kevin Durant is going to join the team and make them an even more unstoppable force, you would be made fun of and laughed at. But here we are today, and Steph Curry has 2 MVPs, Draymond Green has a Defensive Player of the Year, 3 first-team All-NBAs, and a second-team All-NBA, and yes, Kevin Durant joined the Warriors. And then just look at the rest of these players I have up here. When Russ and Harden were drafted, nobody said they were going to be future MVPs. Chris Paul and Kyrie were predictable because they were top picks. Damian Lillard came from a really small school, and nobody really knew what to think of him. John Wall was the #1 overall pick, and Klay Thompson was a 10th pick. And then for the forwards, LeBron and KD were predictable. Kawhi, nobody saw coming. Nobody knew Giannis was going to turn into the Greek freak. Paul George was a 10th overall pick. Jimmy Butler was a 30th overall pick. Ben Simmons obviously was a 1st overall pick. And then for the bigs, Anthony Davis, he was predictable. Joel Embiid was as well, although he did have a lot of injury concerns. Karl Anthony Towns, although drafted with the #1 overall pick, he wasn't in a very strong draft, so I don't think people expected him to be the star that he is today. Boogie Cousins was somewhat predictable, and then Draymond was a 2nd-round pick, so if anybody said they knew he was going to be a star, they're lying. These players are in no order, by the way. No, these are not my top 20 players. I pulled these players from a random top 100 list. I don't even remember where I got it from. So please don't hate on me for this list. So to sum things up, about half of these players weren't even drafted in the top 5. So that tells you how hard it is to predict who the stars will be in the NBA in the future. So now, I'm going to take a look at some of the young players that people think will be NBA superstars, and then I'm also going to take a look at some players that I think are underrated and will become superstars. The first player I'm going to talk about is Devin Booker. So first, I'm going to show you Devin Booker's stats from his first 3 seasons, and I'm going to compare them to somebody else's stats from their first 3 seasons. So this is Devin Booker in the red. And as you can see, these players are somewhat similar in their first 3 seasons in the league. So now, I'm going to tell you that this bottom player is Andrew Wiggins' first 3 seasons. And Andrew Wiggins has been regarded as a bust by most people already. So the first thing is, I think Devin Booker is a little overrated offensively as a scorer. Clearly, he is still inefficient. He has shown slight improvements, but still not enough to be calling him a future superstar. So that is the downside. However, there are a couple differences between the two that I think are promising for Booker. First off, Booker is a high-volume three-point shooter. He took over 7 threes a game last season, shooting over 38%. And his three-point percentage has climbed by 2% each season he's been in the league. That is pretty promising. If Booker is going to be putting up 7 threes a game, shooting over 40%, then that could be the start of him turning into something special. And the other big difference between Booker and Wiggins is assists per game. Now, I don't think assists per game is a great measure of playmaking ability, but in this case, it does make sense. So if Devin Booker lives up to his offensive potential and is shooting over 40% from 3 on 7 attempts per game, and becomes a great playmaker, he still needs to improve his efficiency overall, but he could be a pretty special offensive player. So I talked a lot about Booker's offense, now let's talk about his defense. There's really only one way to put this. It's awful. And he really hasn't shown any signs of improvement since being in the league. Now I want you to take a look at these players up here. Tell me how many of these top 20 players are bad defenders. You would probably think that the worst defenders in this group are Steph, Harden, Kyrie, and Damian Lillard. Steph can hold his own on ball for the most part, and he's a very smart off-ball defender, so he makes up for that. And since Kyrie has moved to the Celtics, his defense has improved drastically. So that really just leaves Harden and Lillard. And Lillard, a lot of people don't even see in the top 10, 15. They think he's one of the most overrated players in the league. But you can see, in order to be a star without being a good defender, you have to be one of the most special offensive talents in the league. And to be considered a superstar without being a good defender, you have to be considered one of the best offensive talents of all time, like Steph Curry. So to sum up Devin Booker, I think you got to keep in mind that this is a two-way game. He looks like he's going to be a special offensive player, but I mean, I can't see him getting to Steph level. And unless a miracle happens and he finally starts showing some defensive improvements, I think his ceiling is being something about what Damian Lillard is. Which is not bad, but I don't think Devin Booker will ever be considered a superstar. Next up is Ben Simmons. This is the biggest one on the list where I think other players have a significant impact on my opinion. Simmons is already a star. He's on my list over here. He's 6'10", 230 pounds. He checks off the physical beast box, and he can hang with the best forwards in the league. I know Simmons is considered a point guard, but his body is more like a forward, and he guards forward, so I just put him in the forwards category. Basketball is turning positionless anyway, so I don't really think it matters. So, I think Ben Simmons has the potential to be a superstar, but under his current circumstances, I don't know if he's ever going to be a true MVP candidate. His co-star in Philly, Joel Embiid, is clearly the dominant scorer on the team, and I don't see that changing. That's fine, but to be considered a superstar in today's NBA, you have to be a top scorer. That's not necessarily what I think, but it's going to be pretty tough to be in the MVP race when you're averaging less than 25 points per game in today's NBA. And Simmons could be averaging a lot less than that. So Embiid is a dominant scorer, but for Simmons as his co-star, I think it's hard to play off of Embiid, especially because Simmons can't shoot. The easiest stars to play with, and the ones that clearly blend the best with other stars, are the ones that are, one, very versatile, or two, have a ridiculous gravitational pull when they are off the ball. The best example of this is Steph Curry. Even when he doesn't have the ball, the entire defense is still focusing on him. Because all it takes is one screen and a split second and 1 foot of separation, and he can get a shot off from anywhere. That and his unselfish play are why him and Kevin Durant have blended so well since Kevin Durant joined the Warriors. Embiid is kind of the opposite. Embiid needs time to work with the ball, like most big men do. And this sucks for Simmons for 2 reasons. First off, Embiid is not the best playmaker. Yes, he averaged 3 assists per game, but he averaged 3.7 turnovers per game. So when he has the ball in the post, he's more likely to turn it over than to get an assist hitting a cutter. Second off, Ben Simmons is a terrible shooter. So that gives his defender the ability to sag off of him and stay near the basket, and it's going to be a lot tougher for Simmons to make cuts and for Embiid to hit him off of cuts when he's in the post. So I really don't think these two are the best fit for each other. The other thing is Embiid also isn't much of a shooter. All of Simmons' points are going to be coming in the paint if he's not going to be a shooter. So it's very important that everybody around him can shoot. And Embiid only shot 30.8% from 3 last season. So that allows the opposing team's center to be able to sag off of Embiid, and it makes it a lot tougher for Simmons to do his work in the paint. And let's take a little bit of a closer look at Embiid's stats. Embiid was averaging almost 23 points per game on 16.8 shots per game, and he was only playing 30.3 minutes per game last season. His conditioning is still terrible. He's clearly still adjusting to the speed and pace of the NBA. So with Embiid's conditioning improving, and as he gets more experience in the league, both his minutes and his shots per game, I think, are going to skyrocket. And that's going to make it really tough on Simmons. If Embiid is playing normal superstar minutes of about 36 minutes per game, and he's taking upwards of 20 shots per game, then Ben Simmons is barely going to ever be in the game without Embiid. So unless Embiid's playmaking and shooting improves drastically, Simmons is going to have a tough time scoring for the rest of his career. Make no mistake, I think Simmons is going to be an all-star for the next 10 to 15 years. And I absolutely do think he has the potential to be a superstar. I just think his current situation kind of screws him, and because of that, he's not going to be able to display his full potential as a scorer. Next up is Jason Tatum. A big thing for Tatum coming out of college was his inefficiency. As a rookie in his first season, he was one of the most efficient players in the NBA. Tatum had one of the highest three-point field goal percentages in the league with 43.4%. And his effective field goal percentage was 53.8%, which is awesome. Now, one knock on that is it was pretty low volume. He only shot 3 threes per game, and he took only 10.4 shots per game. So let's look at the playoffs this year when Kyrie was hurt and Jason Tatum was the #1 option. These right here are his averages for the playoffs. This 20-year-old kid averaged almost 20 points per game on 47% field goal percentage. Playing against Giannis and the Bucks, Ben Simmons and the Sixers, and LeBron and the Cavs. So this was no easy road for him at all. He had to go up against 3 forwards that are in this list right here. I think the most important series to look at is obviously the Philly series. Ben Simmons is also a young player, and he's somebody who Jason Tatum is going to be compared to for the next 10 years. And he's going to be one of his biggest competitors in the Eastern Conference for the next 10 years. And these right here at the bottom are the numbers that Jason Tatum put up against Ben Simmons and that Philly team. Jason Tatum averaged 23.6 points per game, while shooting 52.6% from the field. And also in that series, he showed signs of improved playmaking, and he was still shooting under 16 shots per game. So to sum Tatum up, he can score from every level. He's got the three-point shooting, he's got a great mid-range game, and he can finish at the basket. He's already a very good defender. His playmaking improved drastically from the regular season to the playoffs. He's proven to be very durable, as he played 80 games in his rookie season. He's very underrated as an athlete, with a lot of room to grow. While doing my research for Jason Tatum, I really could not find any holes in this guy's game. This is a 20-year-old kid who's already a very complete player. He's got top 5 scoring potential, and he looks like a legit future superstar. The only thing that I think could hold him back is his team's circumstances. A lot of his development really depends on Kyrie. If Kyrie left the Celtics after next season, I think Tatum could turn into an instant superstar. But if Kyrie stays for another 3, 4, 5 years, that could be kind of tough on Tatum. That being said, Kyrie is still a very unselfish star, and I think he's the type of star that can blend great with any other star. And even if Kyrie stays and is the dominant scorer for the next 4 years, Tatum's only 20. He's still got 7 or 8 years ahead of him before he even hits his prime. So he's got plenty of time. The last player I'm going to talk about is a player that is not being discussed as a future superstar, but I think he's ridiculously slept on. And he's from this year's draft, and that player is Marvin Bagley III. It blows my mind how this guy's height has completely died out. You would think that a 6'11", 235-pound beast who averaged 21 and 11 in the ACC as a freshman and was the ACC Player of the Year would have tremendous height coming out of college, but he doesn't. Coming out of college, his body is very similar to Anthony Davis, who coming out of college was 6'10", 220. His physical dominance is incredibly underrated right now. The first player that comes to mind for me when thinking about who Marvin Bagley reminds me of is Amari Stoudemire. I don't think their play styles are totally similar, but from a body standpoint, he's just a physical beast, just like Amari. However, I think that Bagley has flash potential to be even better than Amari. Obviously, Bagley's greatest things right now are his physical dominance and scoring ability and his rebounding ability. In college, Bagley also flashed signs of having a great three-point shot, as he shot just under 40%. And also, if you watch Duke at all, he flashed some ball handling skills as well. So he's already showing signs of improvement in his areas of weakness and areas that would make him the perfect power forward in today's NBA. Unfortunately, also like Amari, Marvin Bagley is not a great defender. Even if Bagley never develops into a good rim protector, at the very least, he's going to be a very good switchable big man, as he has great lateral quickness and athleticism. And switchability is one of the most coveted traits in a defender in today's NBA. So if he's able to hang with guards on the perimeter, I think he can get by without being a great rim protector. And he wouldn't be a liability on the defensive end. As long as he can be decent on the defensive end, I think this guy is going to be a superstar. I mean, 6'11", 235-pound beasts don't grow on trees. There's barely any in the NBA, and a lot of them are on this list right here. I think his offensive game is going to translate because he's still a physical beast by NBA standards. And he's proven that he can fit the modern NBA mold of a stretch four, as his three-point percentage is almost 40% in college. And he also showed playmaking flashes in college as well. And if those flashes of ball handling in college translate to the NBA as well, look out for this guy. That's it for this video. I know I left out a lot of people. I'll probably be doing a part 2 to this video to get the players that I left out, because there really are just so many young, promising players in the NBA right now. And also, it doesn't take much for fans to believe that somebody's going to become a future superstar. So there's definitely a lot more young players out there that I can talk about. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.